And on today's show, how the generation gap can be bridged with tactical planning. Part one of this week's series on selling across the generations with registered investment advisors and certified financial planners, Rob Odell and Heather Coulter. Hi everyone, I'm Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and contributing author to Insmark, Live Specs, and Backroom Technician. Let's get down to business. Well, welcome to the show, Rob and Heather.
Well, thanks for being here.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm in the presence of registered investment advisors. I don't know whether to genuflect or not, so I know you guys, and you guys have been in this business a long time. Rob, how long have you been in this business?
Over 20 years.
20 years, Heather? Almost. So you guys are veterans, right? But you are veterans of a different generation. You're not boomers.
No.
We're Xers.
Okay, so
Gen Xers.
and what's the difference? I'm just kind of curious, and we'll get into the show. What's the difference between a generation of planners like yourself and a generation of planners like myself coming from the boomer generation?
Well, the boomer generation's a lot of fun. You're optimistic, you're eternally young, you're engaged in life. Our generation, we are not so optimistic. In fact, we could be defined as cynical. Cynical people who like to stalk online and swoop in and buy our goods and services.
Stalk online. What does that mean?
We like to research.
Oh, research.
Sure, yeah.
So
we
is,
like
is
to go
stalking
online.
the new research? Okay.
Yeah.
Research.
I just want to make sure I get my code right.
We're online a lot, making sure that you say who you are.
Well, the average Xer who buys a car researches it online or stalks it online 16 hours before they go to the parking lot.
I'm stunned by that number. Now, we're going to look at something here that not only you're going to unpack this all this week, we're going to be talking about across generations and the planning and the tactical and strategic issues that we use in planning, but this software that we're using is actually your proprietary software. Do you have actually a name for this?
This is a mind mapping software. It's MindMeister. It's actually developed in Europe. It's a web-based software that allows us to analyze and store information, recall it, and today we're presenting off of it. So the maps we create are proprietary. The software itself is actually in the clouds.
Well, let's walk through the first one, and why don't you give me your explanation of this?
Why is it important to know the generations? Number one, we're living in historic times. People are living longer. Therefore, the average advisor is dealing with 4 generations of clients, and there's 4 generations of advisors out there. The other aspect is, in today's society, we are defined as affluent. However, your generation, the mature generation, grew up in a time of emerging affluence. When you have emerging affluence dating back to the Renaissance, you have emphasis on the team. It's the one-for-all mentality. Whereas our generation, we tend to be, when you see affluent society, you have delayed life. People are getting married later in life, having families, and the emphasis switches from the team to the individual.
Now, Heather, when you saw this at first, because you work this all the time, this part of why is You Get Me so important? Because, everybody's always trying to get new prospects. We're trying to bring new clients, new assets under management. But you got to have this in you, in your DNA.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about You Get Me.
Well, you just need to make sure that you understand. So whatever you're trying to sell or work with that person, whether it's a service or a product, they want to make sure that you understand them and what their needs are and that you're listening and the communication's there. So it's very important.
Is that different for a boomer versus a millennial or an Xer?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I guess it would be different. Yeah, absolutely. Because I think their needs are different, their personality is different, they communicate differently.
So now I'm afraid of this line here when it says, when tactics backfire. I'm thinking like, okay, so whatever I've been using in my generation, as well as the seniors that preceded me, I may not be able to use the same tactics for millennials and Xers. Is that what I'm getting out of this?
You may not be effective, and it could backfire on you. For instance, many advisors know how to sell to the senior market, meaning they go in, they show their credentials, they talk about their history, their tenure in the marketplace, the letters that come after their name, and they have closing techniques. And the seniors like to be sold in that fashion. You take that same set of tactics and bring it to our generation.
It turns us off.
You show up in a suit and tie, and you start talking about yourself. When you come to our office, we know that you've already looked us up online, so we don't need to focus on ourselves. And we try using tactics of assumed close, kind of a pressure close. It will backfire on a Gen Xer generation. Okay,
so I'm wondering if I should wear my tie for the rest of the week. I noticed that you don't have one. So, well, give me a little insight. This guy, Kim Marson's huge on the net. Give me a little bit about his insight.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I was in Dallas at the Brokerage conference in September of 2011, and he spoke the night before I spoke on mind mapping. And he broke down the 4 generations, and he just talked about what to do and, more importantly, what not to do in each of the 4 generations. Fantastic thought leader in this research on generation.
Now, when he broke that down, were you guys concurring all the way down the line?
Yeah, I was not there present for that, but he came back and showed me the presentation, and I have looked up, and listened to his videos online. Totally concur. It's very entertaining, and you can just relate to that, because everyone knows a baby boomer or a Gen Xer, and you can relate to everything he's saying, and he does it in a very humorous fashion.
But now you guys are really talking about specific rules of engagement per generation. That's what I'm getting out of this conversation.
That is correct.
So this is a big deal that we
Very
need to,
big.
especially if we're boomers, we're going to stay around for another 10 years in the market, and we're trying to get to younger clients.
Correct.
We need to really figure out what these rules are. Now, Cam brought this up, and you're right, he's a very humorous guy.
Yeah.
But you are taking this to another level because you're actually mind mapping all this.
That is correct.
That to me is the big thing. I can not only hear what you're saying, you're going to show us all this week how mind mapping, and this is a new technology. Most advisors have never seen this, and I think this is where the market's going.
Yes.
So it's a very important. Give me a last, before we break for the commercial, give me a kind of an overview of what we're going to be looking like all this week. Why mind mapping is going to control our conversation for the series.
Well, mind mapping does not work in a linear fashion. The human mind is not designed in the linear fashion. Most people are not linear. What mind mapping allows you to do is apply colors, allow the work in terms of put information out there in the way the human mind works. So this presentation over these next couple of days is we're going to break down each one of the generations, characteristics, how to approach them, what to do, what not to do, using mind mapping software to take you through it.
We come back from the break, we're going to talk more about mind mapping, how to bridge the generational gaps, and maybe learn a little bit on rules of engagement. We'll be right back. It's not how much money you make for your clients, it's how much money they get to keep, especially in retirement. But retirement income could cause Social Security benefits to be taxed. One tax advantage alternative is life insurance designed as a non-modified endowment contract that can generate tax-free income without taxing Social Security benefits. These contracts offer differing funding options depending upon your client's risk tolerance. For more information on how life insurance can be part of your retirement planning, just email me at steve@downtobusiness.tv. Brought to you by Ash Brokerage, the practice enhancement company. Well, welcome back to our second segment. Of course, I'm with registered investment advisor and certified financial planners, Rob O'Dell and Heather Coulter. We're talking about mind mapping. We're talking about 4 generations. And you're introducing me, I don't know, can an old dog learn new tricks? I'm thinking my boomer advisors out there watching the show are going, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? There's a lot of language barriers and tactical issues. Yes, there are. And I think that you're going to escort us through this. I think that's huge. Walk us through it.
Well, as we said in the last program, there are 4 generations in the marketplace, 6 generations alive today, but 4 in the marketplace. And each generation has its uniqueness, the way they talk, they communicate. And what we're doing in this presentation just at a very high level, break down each generation. So,
by the way, before you get to that, you've talked about 4 generations that are in the marketplace. Is there really any difference, Heather, on the generations, male, female? Any differences there?
Of course. Well, yeah.
So there's going to be
There's
not
always
only the
differences.
4 generations, I have to think in gender terms as well.
Absolutely.
We'll get into that.
We'll get into that.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay.
So let's start with the oldest generation in the marketplace, known as mature, silent, silver, builder generation. They're defined as people born before 1945. This is the most affluent generation. So if you go to an advisor's book of business, chances are this is the most profitable business that they have. Now, here comes the gender issue that we found.
Yes. In this circumstances, usually when we worked with this generation, the male would show up. They were the primary decision makers, and a lot of times the females didn't show up. And if they did, they were kind of intimidated and they didn't say too much. They weren't very much engaged.
And that's very unique to this generation. This generation also placed trust in the experts. If you show up and you have credentials after your name, you're given trust. And their view of retirement is far different than younger generations, that when they get to retirement, it is a destination. Let's go golfing, let's go to the club, let's enjoy our friends and take doses of our family. So this is the mature generation. Now, Steve, here's your generation. This is the fun generation known as the baby boomers.
I've always known that. Yes, we are fun.
You're fun. We actually divide this generation in two
segments.
Two segments,
Yeah.
late and early. The early boomers are fun. Later boomers are a little more cynical. We'll get into that a little
Okay.
bit. This is the most influential generation. You think about the president, vice presidents, members of Congress, CEOs, they're all members of this generation. They're raised in emerging affluence. That's where some of their optimism comes from. They're about the team. Teammanship to the baby boomers is very important, and a team member is defined as someone who can solve their financial anxiety. They become a part of the team. Now, this is a big one. They're friends with their children.
Yeah, absolutely.
The boomers are.
The boomers are.
So you're not.
Oh, as a Gen X, you mean?
Yeah.
With our
Oh,
parents,
yeah.
it's not the same relationship. The boomers
isn't.
have with
Yeah,
theirs.
we have a different relationship with our children than we do
Interesting.
with our parents.
Now, the coolest thing, one of the coolest things, is that when they show up, it's no longer just the husband showing up.
Yeah, the woman is very influential. They show up and they are dealing with a lot of things, especially with the financial planning services or a lot of things in life. They're much more engaged in our meetings.
And are they ready to talk about it? Or do they seem to you to be more educated?
In fact, they're
Oh,
probably
yeah,
more engaged than the
absolutely.
husband.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're together. They're a team. Husband and wife, they're a team. And they're there to work on their finances. As Heather said, the woman often is more engaged than the husband. Yeah. Let's go to our generation, which is much more cynical. We're known as cynical stalkers. We're Generation X, born between 1966 and 1980. We're the first latchkey generation. So when we came home from school, often we come home to empty houses. We're the first generation divorced. We're the first generation to research or stalk online. We were raised in an affluent society, which caused us to delay some of the life things such as marriage and children.
Before you go on, I just want to make sure my advisors, who are probably boomers, are watching a lot of serious. When you say stalker online, you're just talking about your research.
Correct.
Researching things on the line. You're the Google generation.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Whether buying an automobile or a waffle maker,
Gotcha.
we're going to look at it online, get all the research, and then swoop in and buy our goods and services. Now, for an advisor to know about this generation, if they show up at your office, they're 50% pre-sold. They've done the research on you. They've looked at your credentials. They probably Googled you all over the place. And so you do no longer need to focus on yourself, your credentials. You can focus on the Gen Xer, how to save them time and money, and in that order.
So I can pretty much bet that they have a trust factor already because of their own personal research.
Their own personal. But if they go to hear someone speak at a meeting, they're going to say, who is this guy? And there's a kind of a phony detector going off, and they're going to be more skeptical.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Now, I'm just curious, just because your generation, this whole issue of raised in influence.
Affluence.
Affluence. Is that actually a positive thing or a negative thing? Because if you've had it given to you, right? Like so many people say we did, the boomers gave their kids this, is that a good thing?
It's debatable. Depends who you're asking. So let's talk about the boomers' kids now. The boomers created these kids. They're called millennials. Born after 1980. They're the whatever generation. They grew up programmed, protected, and praised by mom and dad. Mom and dad did this to them. They're delaying life much more than even the Gen Xers. Now, they have some characteristics that are like the boomers in that they like community.
Yes.
And they are...
Social media.
Social media. They're cause-driven. They like a bigger purpose than themselves. They travel in packs. I had a friend whose son went to prom. I said, who did you go with? He goes, 19 of us. I goes, 19 include you or exclude you? He goes, includes me. So they travel in packs. But they like to be recognized for individuality.
Sometimes they're perceived as lazy because they like things just handed to them and they want things now.
Right.
Is that on-demand satisfaction, is that a major thing that I have to think about as an advisor then?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Well, how do I address that?
You want to keep it to 3 minutes. You want to entertain them. You want to present your message to them so they can understand.
So it's edutainment now,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah, that's a good word.
Snippets. That's what you want to think about when you deal with this generation. This generation does not necessarily have the wealth yet, but they need financial services, especially the older ones in this generation.
Well, thanks for walking me through this. This is huge. That's all the time we have for today. Remember, before moving forward with any of the ideas on our show, always consult your tax advisor, legal counsel, or your broker-dealer compliance officer. Missed an episode? Just go out to our video archives. And remember, you could be wiser as an educated advisor. I'm Steve Savant. We'll see you tomorrow.